Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to watch the video and spend some time with me. And we're going to be talking about a study that shows the best time of day to catch bass. And I think this is really going to surprise you guys. Everybody sort of has a I don't want to call it a misconception, but they have a theory on the best time of day to fish, or when the fish bite the best. And after this study, after partaking in it, being part of it and studying it, I think it's sort of going to blow a lot of those misconceptions out of the water. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, quick invitation out there. Just like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. It's free and easy to do so. We've had some really good channel growth over the past week, and we're really working hard to get to 150,000 subscribers, so that's much appreciated. And also, guys, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, you can do that by going to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and just shoot me a private message. So really appreciate that. Okay, guys, this study that I'm talking about is one that I've done independently myself over the past 40 or 50 years, trying to determine the best time of day to catch bass. And after doing this for so long, and after fishing for decades and decades, going through different seasons like spring, summer, winter, and fall, fishing all over the country in different bodies of water, I've been able to put together some type of a system that really sort of tells me the best time of day to fish. And it's a very sort of a complex study. This is not anything that's simple. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you need to go at this time or that time. It's all relative to a lot of different things seasonally that we're going to talk about. So when you're talking about the best time day to fish, you can't, that's too much of an oversimplification, because you don't have all the information. In order to determine the best time of day to fish, you have to understand a couple different things. You have to understand the time of year, water temperature, water clarity, the species of bass that you have. There's a lot of different things that go into that. So what I want to do in today's video is I want to go through each season of the year, and I want to explain to you, based upon the conditions for that season, the best time of day to fish. So it's be able to relate to that, season by season. So first thing that I'm going to say, we've talked about this a little bit before I get into the season by season, is probably the number one thing that I can tell you that the biggest misconception in bass fishing is that you have to get up early to go bass fishing. I don't know where this started at, but it's completely not true. It's like, go ahead and sleep in. Don't be one of those guys think you got to get up in the dark and be at the lake at the crack of dawn to catch fish, because you don't. That's one thing I have learned from this study for sure, is that is completely unnecessary. And I don't understand people that say the morning is the best time of the day. It ain't the best time of the day. The morning is like everybody's sleepy and groggy and don't want to get up. It's not the best time of the day. It's usually dark, it's cold. It's my opinion, the morning is the worst time of day to fish. Okay, we'll start on winter here. Now, winter, when we're talking about winter, you're talking about the time of the year when the water temperature is within a 5-degree variance of the coldest point that it gets. So say, for example, if the coldest your water temperature gets on your lake is, say 45 degrees or so, winter is pretty much 5 degrees either side of that. For the most part, it's going to be, anywhere between mid-December and sometimes into early March. If you have, weather patterns come through, that's going to be your winter time of the year. Now, it's been my experience during the winter time of the year, probably more than anything else, that bass bite best during a very specific time. And I fish a lot in the winter, guys. I do a lot of my on-the-water lessons in the winter time, so I've got a lot of experience fishing during the coldest period of the year, and I have for 50 years. And I can tell you guys right off the bat, the best time to fish in the winter time when the water's cold is sort of that period between like 11:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon, when that sunlight is higher than any time during the day. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with the water warming up, because the water's not warming up. I don't care. It doesn't matter if it's 20 degrees or 70 degrees. It's like that heat of the day is not moving fish up shallow. It has something to do with a lot of elements that we don't understand. And that's one of the things about it, is we have a tendency in bass fishing to try to want to explain everything. And some things you just can't explain, and that's okay. You don't want to know everything. You want to keep that mystery alive. And for whatever reason that I can't really identify, that is the best time of day to fish during the wintertime. And the only thing that I can really theorize from my standpoint is that the light penetration is greater, which does have an impact on certain things. But maybe it has something to do with the fish being a little deeper or the fish being suspended. But I know from doing all the wintertime fishing that I have, it's usually always slow up until about 11 o'clock in the morning or so, and then it picks up for 2 or 3 hours, and then it gets dark early that time of year, and the fishing gets tougher as it goes on. So the window of time in the wintertime is probably the smallest of any time. Now, as the water temperature warms up, this stays intact until you have the water reaching what I call a critical temperature, and that is 55 degrees in the morning. Now, there's a big difference, guys. Once your water temperature reaches 55 degrees, there's a shift on the best time of day to fish. And one of the things about water temperature that you have to understand is you don't want to take water temperature like in the afternoon. The water temperature that is relative to the bass mood and personality is the water temperature when you first put the boat in the lake in the morning. It's not like in the afternoon if you're in the back of a cove that's been getting beat by sunlight all day, right off the bat in the morning. So when you launch your boat in the morning and you notice water temperature 55 degrees, there's a transition for when those bass are going to bite a little bit better. And that has to do with your water clarity in correlation with the water the water temperature. So in other words, if you've got, say for example, if you've got some dirty water, and it's 55 degrees in that zone, a little bit, on that precipice of being 55, it's going to be the same thing as the wintertime. Your bite is traditionally going to be a little bit better in the afternoon, because once that water temperature reaches 55 degrees, and that time of year, the sunlight is coming into a different angle. That is when those bass do capitalize on that warming water, and they will move up shallow and they will start biting. So when you've got water temperatures between, like, say 55 and 65 degrees, which is normally anywhere between, I don't know, March to early May, depending upon where you're at, and you have water visibility that's a little bit stained, like less than 3 foot, you're going to have a better afternoon bite. It's usually better, anywhere between, say, 1:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you have clear water and that water temperature is 55 to 65 degrees, they do bite a little bit better in the morning. I'm not talking like right off the bat in the morning, but I'm talking about before 10 o'clock. It seems like in that clear water, when that water temperature starts reaching that mid 50s to around 60, those fish really react well to the lower light conditions, especially if you can be around shade. So if you can fish some shady banks in the springtime of the year when that water temperature is in that zone, that's a really good time to catch them. Now, the next transition takes place when the water temperature starts reaching close to 70 degrees, and you're not really in the summer period yet. So there's a window, usually in May, when that water temperature hits 70, and it's going to stay like that up until like some part in June, depending upon the weather pattern. But during that post-spawn period, when that water temperature is around 70 degrees, there's again 2 windows to catch these fish at, depending upon your technique, regardless of the water clarity. Because as your water temperature warms up, your water clarity, the fish use a lot more diverse water in a lot of different clarities. So when that water temperature gets above 70 degrees, if you're fishing shallow, especially topwater fishing, which is usually good during the post-spawn, it's obviously the bite's going to be better early or late in the day. Low light conditions, you got more shade, those fish are up shallow, they're cruising shallow, a lot of them are garden fry, and you can catch them like that. But if you're taking advantage of a typical post-spawn situation where those fish are starting to move deeper, like you're catching them on ledges or deeper points on a deep diving crankbait or football head jig, your bite's going to be better later in the day during those conditions, like up around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the day, when that sunlight gets a little bit higher. It's going to be a really key time. Now, the next transition takes place in the summertime of the year. In the summertime of the year, this is the time of year I have found that the time of the day has the least amount of impact on the bass. Now, first of all, y'all, a lot of you guys out there that fish in the summer, you got this deal where you want to get up with the freaking in the middle of the night to go fishing, to get out there first light. But I'll tell you, one of the most overrated ways to bass fish is getting up early in the morning in the summer to try to throw a topwater. Number one, there's not very many good fish that are going to bite a topwater real shallow in the summertime, and the window is so small. You got a very small window of time when that works. So I don't ever get up early. If I'm fishing for fun, guys, in the summertime, I never get up early to go fishing. One of the things you're going to find out in the summertime of the year is the water temperature has the least impact on what the fish do. The fish bite more accordingly to wind and during little bite windows during the day. Now, the wind has a huge impact on the time of day as far as when those fish bite the best. Most of the time in the summertime, the best time of day to fish is when it's the windiest. I don't care if it's at 9 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Those fish will really react to wind. I don't care if you're throwing a square bill crankbait on a lay down log in 2 foot of water, or if you're fishing a deep brush pile in 30 foot of water with a big worm. Seems like wind generates the bass. That makes the fish bite a little bit better. And depending upon where you're fishing, like I said, this can go on, it may go on all day long, but don't fall into that trap where you think you have to get up, really early in the morning. Okay, now this sort of stays in effect until you start to get into the fall time of the year, and you really don't notice a transition. A lot of people sort of equate fall fishing with the month of September, but in my opinion, September is still a summer month. I consider summer June, July, August, September, because for most parts of the country, you don't start to get any significant cooling until you get into October, and where the water temperatures start to cool a little bit. Now, one of the things about fall fishing that I will tell you, once that water temperature starts cooling down into the 60s, that's when you start noticing a big transition, especially into the 50s. This is when there is several bite windows throughout the course of the day. If the water temperature is in the 60s and you're fishing in October, there's always a really good morning bite. And it doesn't have to be a topwater. It can be a swim jig, it can be a shallow crankbait, it can be a glide bait. But early in the morning, or not like right off the bat, but before 10 o'clock in the morning, you really try to concentrate on shade. I don't care what the water visibility is. Those bass will really bite well during that little window of time in the morning when it is shady, when that water temperature is in like that. And then throughout the course of the day, it can be sort of hit and miss. But during that period when that water temperature is like that, I always want to try to run as much low light, shady banks as I possibly can. That's really, really good with that. And as the water temperature begins to drop into the 50s, this is another major transition. This is what I consider like the mid to late fall period, when that water temperature starts to drop about probably 10 degrees from its lowest point that it's going to get, is when you have that water temperature finally start to drop into the 50s, especially when it starts getting down like into the mid 50s in the fall, October and November. This is when all day long is good. It's like it's one of the few times of the year where there's not a best time of day to fish. You can catch them good at 8 o'clock in the morning, at noon, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a lot of fish that just bite all day long, and it's not like that, throughout much of the other part of the year. But anyway, guys, that's just a little study, the independent study that I've done on my own as far as, the times of the day. And that, while that is a generalization, you have to remember that there's a lot of other factors that determine that, because that bass they're not victims of the time of the day. Because one of the things you have to remember about bass is they rarely bite a lure because they're hungry. Most of the time they bite a lure out of reflex or instinct or curiosity or competition or anger. So if you can capitalize on like a reaction strike or an instinctive strike, you can catch fish all day long. That's why your reaction lures like crankbaits and spinnerbaits and chatterbaits are very consistent, because they can generate a strike from an inactive bass regardless of the time of the day. So anyway, guys, hope it helps out, and we'll talk later.